What's going on, guys? Fun with Knives back again, and it is time to review the Brous Blades Sniper. This is the budget version from quite a few years back. If you're a longtime viewer, you probably remember this knife. This was one that was chosen for me by you guys. I had a competition running on you guys pick my next knife, had a voting system, and this won, actually by a pretty decent margin. So I've had this in the collection for years now, carried it off and on, and I'm finally getting around to the review of this awesome and terrible knife at the same time. Now that's a little bit of a stretch, but it has got some great qualities and some not so great ones too. So first we'll do some specs real quick. 8 3/4 inches overall length there, 3 3/4 inch blade. Your handle length, obviously 5 inches. Handle thickness is 0.45, so decently thin, and your blade thickness is 0.13. So overall, thin, slender knife. You got that D2 steel on the blade, and then an entirely stainless steel handle, stainless steel frame lock. And your weight's coming in at 5.17 ounces. So a little bit more backstory and I'll hop right in. I carried this knife for a while. The pocket clip got sprung out like crazy. Contacted Brous Blades customer support because it wasn't even something I could fix. It was actually hardware broken. They were great, dealt with it. But this is one I've been kind of dreading reviewing because it's going to be about 50% good, 50% bad. So let's start with the good. I do like the action on this knife. It's actually pretty dry. I kind of found it in a knife carrier and the action's great. It's not extremely smooth and glassy. You can see it's dry. You can, kind of hear that detent ball scraping, and it still fires every time. The lockup is very secure. I really do like the action. Flipper tabs mounted just right, and I have had no issues deploying that blade. Speaking of the blade, I do like the shape quite a bit. It's unique. It's not utilitarian for all tasks. It's kind of got that fillet knife profile, hollow grind on that guy that terminates in a very thin, behind the edge kind of situation with that secondary bevel. It's pretty damn slicey, and it's got a very precise tip that you would not want to pry or anything with it because you're going to lose part of that tip. So luckily mine survived, but yeah, it performs great for a lot of EDC tasks. It's got a lot of reach, obviously almost 4 inches long, but good blade shape. The fit and finish on this knife for most things, we'll return to some, is really good. The build quality is nice. It's got kind of a weird bead blast stonewash stainless steel here, but it's chamfered nicely. You can see there's weight reduction cutouts throughout. It feels good in the hand. Ergos are decent for such a slim knife. There's quite a bit of attention to detail. I like the pivot collar, lock bar over travel stop, these little cutouts for your thumb to get in between those handle scales to disengage the frame lock. So there's some nice attention to detail things here. Some of the jimping's nice to hold such a slick knife in your hand. I mean, it's never going to have a ton of traction, but what they did gives you some. And then lastly, it's durable. It's all stainless steel. It's got a frame lock. I'm not really worried about abusing this knife or hurting it too much, other than that tip. I mean, I trust this to do some decently hard work. And oh yes, one last thing. Their presentation was good. I don't have the box in front of me, but they serialize these knives. Let's see where they put that. Here you go. Mine's 525 out of 1,000 for this particular model. But nice box, and there's a little card in there. So I think Brous Blades makes a lot more expensive knives than this usually. This obviously being their budget side of things. I don't even know if they make a lot of knives like this anymore at all, but their presentation was good. So now let's go to the bad, which the bad may outweigh the good for some of you guys. So we'll hit some of the highlights I think other people have noticed. You get kind of that jimping bite when you hit the flipper tab here. It's not overly aggressive. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but if you're going to be fidgeting with this knife over and over, you're gonna feel that. I tend to almost use this like a front flipper and use my thumb to kind of flick it, and then I use my index finger to disengage the lock. And the reason I do that is because the lock bar has incredible lock stick. I mean, it's what you get when you have two different hardnesses of steel colliding with each other, rubbing on each other. I tried the old trick of putting some lubricant or some Sharpie where the lock bar was hitting to kind of grease that up and hopefully make that go away. And you can still hear it. I mean, the lockup's strong, it's functional, but that lock bar stickiness is just kind of bothersome. Really takes away from the fidgetiness, if that's a word, of this knife. Between that flipper bite and then that lock bar stickiness. The sharp edges, I mentioned that the fit finish is pretty decent overall, but there's some things that are just overlooked. Like this section of the handle that is cut out for the lock bar is at a straight 90 degrees. It's not going to cut you, it doesn't hurt real bad, but if you're really cranking on this knife or doing some carving, you can feel that area, which is interesting to me because this knife is very similar to the, I have it around here somewhere, the Reich, or however you say that, this knife here, the P801, in that it's a slim, you know, long, all steel frame lock, decent action on both, deep carry pocket clips. I think these knives are very similar, and this has better attention to detail overall. The same area we were talking about here is chamfered on this knife. There's kind of a step that, there you go, the light's hitting it there. This one's just much smoother in hand, and there's some things they forgot about on the Sniper that even a $30 knife, $35 knife doesn't have. And that brings us to value. I think at the time, the value proposition of this knife was pretty good. American made, or at least an American company. I actually don't know if it was made in America, but I think it was, of a well-known knife maker at 80, 90, maybe $100, D2 steel, cool design. I think that was pretty good back in the day, but it's not anymore. Other than the American made aspect, which is very cool, this knife is just overpriced. I mean, Kershaw is making D2 knives with frame locks for 40, 50 bucks. And then we bring in the big hitters like Civivi, and they're making much better knives in this price category. And maybe that's why these aren't really available anymore. And then lastly, for the bad, is the pocket clip. Made a couple videos on this, on updates on it. I like the idea, but the implementation is just bad. The loop over nature is great. It hides a huge knife in your pocket with, I mean, just nothing showing out. But the area between the pocket clip and the handle scale is just way too tight. I have to watch what shorts or pants I wear in case I want to carry this knife. And the tension on it is subpar. It bent out, you know, as pocket knife clips do. But what happened was, if you guys can see those two little screws in there that hold this clip on, those screws are impossibly small. And it actually sheared the head off the top one when this sprung out. So it wasn't even something I could fix. I needed a whole replacement pocket clip. The pocket clip's not strong enough. It's not tall enough. And frankly, it just doesn't have enough tension. So good idea, bad implementation, but between the lock bar stick, the flipper bite, the terrible pocket clip, and the value no longer presented by this model, this one's probably going to be leaving the collection. In fact, I think 4 or 5 years ago when I made one of my last videos before coming back, I said I'd be giving this one away, and I still think that's the plan. I'll try to get it as lubed up and sharp as I can, and then it'll go off to a lucky viewer. But that is the Brous Blades Sniper stainless steel frame lock. Thanks for watching, guys, as always. And remember, have fun with your knives.